have Poppy, Pantheon, and Mbessa. Bessa, I think, is going to be a very highly contested champion as we go out through these drafts tonight. And we are getting both the Azir and the Kiana. Most importantly, Nico has made its way on through. Champion has been dropping, at least here in the bottom half of the brackets, especially here for regional finals. And instead, we're going to be picking up a Yunara, which I think very important here for Peyz, has been one of our better players on the champion.
As we go throughout the draft, important power picks. As we mentioned, of course, the Azir has been consistently banned on the Weibo side. Yunara has been a frequent on the red side of bans, but this time getting through over to Peyz, one of the best marksmen that we have here in the LPL. The classic Annie Wukong on Weibo's side is going to be answered by a Jarvan Orianna. So we're quickly seeing a teamfight identity being set up for both of these squads.
Okay, so if JDG can get into areas first, I think it's tough for Weibo to really break their front line. Just with having a Jarvan and an Orianna as a setup, you always have that snap engage you can try to go for. Plus, it also allows time for Peyz to ramp up on this Yunara and completely obliterate a team fight. But Weibo, I think, with important champions here, you're taking away Annie from Scout, you're also getting the Wukong here for Tian, and most importantly, I think, Corki. Corki has shown up as not only one of the highest ban rates here in the tournament, but also very, very high priority for JDG and making sure that Peyz and Zhuo have a smooth enough early game and kind of get over those humps there. So second half of ban scrapes. I'm looking at this right now. We still don't have either top laner. You could just go for something blind. I think a Cassante is fine from what we've seen from these two guys. Aatrox seems like it is growing only more and more, although I doubt it'll be a first game priority as we see it is banned here. And no supports, I think. Very, very telling, I think.
Yeah, they haven't been the highest performing players. You might as well focus on the areas of the map that might be the more impactful parts of this game, of this series. Ban that I was expecting to see was perhaps that Scion for Breathe that is going to be available for him on 4. If Weibo want to pick that one up, has been one of the strongest tanks, one of the strongest top laners in general in the current meta. We'll see if that is something that they want to go for, or if Breathe opts for something a little bit more carry-oriented, being something he's been pretty good at as well.
All right, Scion is fine. You still can just go for either the Renekton if we're really feeling fine. Cassante is also okay. I think with what Weibo is showing, they're rather low range. So JDG have a resounding amount of engage. They also have the ability for them to be able to peel back and stop whatever Weibo want to be able to get done. What now I need to see is whether or not these carries are actually going to be able to hit through this front line coming on through from Weibo. Because now you're going to have what is presumably going to be a Leona who can now test the flash every couple of minutes with that solar flare. You're going to have Scion who's going to be in the front line. JDG are going to have it's going to take them a while to take down someone like Breathe. So let's use the priority that we get from mid and bottom lane. This bot lane with a Corki and a Leona should be able to win, even with the Braum matchup there.
And that bot lane for Weibo, the biggest X factor, in my opinion, about how this series can go, because Peyz has been so consistent all year long, whereas Light, not necessarily as consistent, but this time of the year, always showing up in those regional finals has been one of the biggest reasons why Weibo of 23 and 24 both were able to qualify for Worlds as well as go on a deep run throughout that tournament once they got there. There is still a lot more work for them to do, as of course the winner of this series will then play IG and eventually T1 if they can get there to even qualify into the main event. But Light and Crisp are going to have to be a big reason why Weibo are going to be able to get there again.
This is the last call for these two teams. After tonight, one of them will be done for 2025, no post-season runs, and it's been so tough. You talked about it from Weibo's side, the history that is there. For JDG, I'm looking at the two carries, Scout and Peyz. Is this going to be a year that Scout hopefully can make up by making an international? And for Peyz, can we get him to at least one tournament, man? Please, he has deserved it all year long.
Wanting to do what Ruler could not do a year ago, which is qualify to Worlds with JDG. Of course, the one who stopped them, Weibo Gaming. One series later in the tournament, but an elimination match regardless here. A best of 5, game number 1 about to begin. A matchup that is sure to be written with incredible team fights, incredible gameplay between two of the most storied organizations in the LPL. It's game number 1 of Weibo and JDG starting now.
碾碎它。
It's so funny, you talk about storied, and while Weibo only joined in an official capacity the LPL in 2022, the fact that they took over for a team like Suning, who eventually has a long enough career or history in the LPL beforehand,
全军
a
出
long
击！
ways going. I mean, I remember a Suning roster that had a very, very young On, otherwise known as Owo at the time. It is a very interesting track record. There was the Shy roster with Weibo for a little bit there. Those were very cursed days.
Made it to World's Finals in 23. So
I try and block out that year. I really try to block out that year. There's no reason the Shy should have won versus Bid, but
you know who's on those teams though? Xiaohu and Light, who are going to be again big players to watch here on Weibo's side. Taking big journeys to get here. Both organizations marred by inconsistent performances in both splits 1, 2, and 3. Both organizations and both teams that were expected to compete for a spot at Worlds. Of course, they are here, but
well, they're doing
not
it
with the highest expectations being met at this point in time. Hey, as we get the junglers starting off their initial clears, we want to make sure that you all know that the LPL English broadcast is sponsored by Protif.gg. If you want to get the highest level of coaching possible, make sure to use our code LPL10. You can get high-level coaching from the ERL, the LTA, and the NACL. Again, code LPL10 at Protif.gg.
I've had a couple of the pros on the broadcast here. Most of them junglers, unfortunately. Both junglers are heading towards the bottom side of the map. As an AD carry player, I can't get behind the propaganda of the role.
We got Rhino. We got a support on there as well.
That is true. That is true.
That's
But you can see that the spot lane is starting to work together, at least for Peyz and Zhuo. And I have been critical of both of these bottom lanes. We talked about Weibo in the playoffs. Just Light and Crisp look like they do not want to play together, and that was the rumor coming into this offseason for 2025. And for Peyz and Zhuo, you've only had about a split now to play with each other, and I think a lot of their strength has come from when they're out of lane and being able to fulfill the roles of what their two roles usually indicate. But the lane hasn't been as great, so if we're not able to squeeze all that much here from Weibo, if we're not able to destabilize this Braum and Yunara, I'm actually really, really excited for what JDG have in store for us in this game.
Interesting, when Zhuo was on LNG to start the year off, something that I thought he was good at, but maybe something that created some inconsistencies in his play was just always willing to go in, always very aggressive. And on the Braum, maybe going to be a little bit more difficult to do that, but as I say that, Shun going in for a flag and drag combo onto Xiaohu, both the jungler for JDG and the mid laner for Weibo, going to burn those flashes.
That's awesome. That's exactly what I want to see, because now we're going to take resets in about 1.5 to 2 minutes. Actually, probably closer to 3 now that I say it. We are going to have a flashless Annie versus an Orianna ultimate. And that could be what makes or breaks the upcoming Grub fight, right? So maybe it opens up for an early timer on Dragon, an objective that we haven't seen too many teams take unless it is a free trade. We're not also opting for a swap with a Scion. I think that is worthy of note.
Well, you know, one flash burn by Shin, another one burned by Tian. And the top side of the map is Xiaoxu will have to utilize his summoner spell there. Both top laners just going to be heading back to base, and maybe we will see a swap in tow. You know, I feel like Weibo, despite having a Scion, might have wanted to try to use this Corki Leona to get the push and try to abuse this 2v2, but it has not just happened in the way that we were expecting it to at this point.
Yeah, the Braum is just so dangerous, and while Crisp still has access to the Eclipse, not having things like Aftershock have at least slightly changed up some of the dynamics here. We'll see a bit of trading, especially with heal up.
Yeah, we already have 2 stacks of the concussive blows onto Light. Crisp getting stunned up by Peyz, who has that lethal tempo procced, and with the wave slow pushing, not going to be the worst case scenario for Weibo, but another summoner spell being blown on Weibo's side. As we get some scrapping in the top side, those Raptor camps always a valuable commodity, and looks like Shun going to take advantage of that.
Yeah, he's getting closer to level 5. He even accidentally soaks a mid lane wave. I know my junglers definitely love accidentally taking about half a wave of experience for no reason. And instead of going for immediately just contesting his own Raptors, they have push because they got a lot of good damage down onto this bot lane. That's that early dragon that we were just mentioning, and they still have a reasonable amount of time to reset the map, look for other sides of the map, and especially now, Chris not having, or Xiaohu still not having that flash, I expect that that'll be something that we are looking for from JDG's perspective to try to punish. Scout now having access to that ultimate, and we've got Grubs in 2 minutes.
Should be able to finish this one off with one more auto and the smite. Shun should be able to either recall or flag and drag out if danger does present itself, or maybe a play towards the bottom side where Crisp and Light just showed once again. But with that Dragon first being taken here by JDG, you know, we didn't get a full chance to really identify the win conditions of each team. We're looking for team fights, obviously, but to me, at least, it feels like JDG maybe outscale a little bit here. So getting that Dragon is going to be very impactful later on.
I just think that they get too tanky later on. Like, Annie's burst is not going to be as relevant as the game goes on, and Corki doesn't deal well with tanks. I think having to play into both a Braum and a Cassante is not the kind of life you want to live. Light is trapped now, because we're about 1.5 minutes away from these Grubs. Weibo are not a team that are going to side lane very well, and unless they're able to break one of these lanes, Shun is covering on mid. This bottom lane, again, Light still hasn't recalled yet. This is really problematic for Weibo's early game.
Well, Shockwave lands on Xiaohu. Remember, he doesn't have any flash, and Shun comes in to pick up first blood for JDG. Tian arrives, but it is all too late, as JD Gaming are the ones to strike first in this best of 5.
And Shun, because he flipped his pathing, instead of going immediately to his Raptors, he goes bottom side, does his Krugs, does his Raptors, then he moves in to this top side. He's going to get a Scuttle Crab, and while it's a little too early to go for Grubs immediately, he has all of his top side, and both his bottom lane and his mid lane Orianna are going to be able to get resets in and be super powerful for this play. So if JDG want to opt for it, which I would definitely say they're more than likely or more than favored to do so, this could be a very awesome start to the series. You get the first Dragon, first Blood, first all 3 Grubs. That's a massive win in my book.
Yeah, I mean, just a really well-executed sequence from Shun and Scout, burning the flash off of Xiaohu to start off at about 4 minutes, and just returning a couple minutes later, getting the kill with the Shockwave. That is just prototypical textbook League of Legends right there. Something that we have not seen a ton of from the JDG mid-jungle duo throughout the entirety of the season. It's been inconsistent at best, but so far they are delivering with the Grubs about to spawn. Weibo actually sending all 5 up here to the top side of the map, and they're going to find out Zhuo, who the Tivers will land on top of, and one more rocket from Light is going to seal the deal. So an overload for Weibo working for them so far,
Peyz?
but now Peyz is transcended, but running into a 1v3. Going to be very dangerous for him to enter that position with the Grubs already being started up. Xiaoxu forces Tian to W away with 2 Grubs still remaining, one of them already claimed by the side of Weibo Gaming. The second one will go over to the Cassante, and he's now stuck inside the pit as Xiaohu and Crisp are trying to chase the Jarvan away. And outside of the river, a smite does not exist on either side. It will be a flip for that third and crucial Grub. All out goes in, on to Breathe. We're getting a crazy team fight at 8 minutes into the game. It's going to be the Corki to claim that second Grub, but now Weibo are trapped. They have to try to find some way to escape, but it will not happen for Breathe. Flag and Drag connects, and it'll be 2-1 to JDG to start off this game.
It'll be 2 Grubs going over to Weibo, and you saw that JDG needed to play with hesitation. A great pick coming in from Weibo to get onto Zhuo means that they have a numbers advantage for that fight, but JDG were also waiting for their buttons to come back up. Scout did not have the ultimate until about 3 seconds before the last Grub fell, and Peyz had used his Transcendence to try to put pressure down onto Light and Crisp. So it's an objective win going over to Weibo. It's a small gold lead here opening up for JDG. And, I mean, a worthwhile trade, all things considered. You know, we're talking about playing on side lanes. JDG, I think, a bit more favored as this game goes on, with both Orianna and the Cassante being tanky enough to deal with their respective counterparts. So a good takeaway from their opponents, and hopefully gives them something that can help them accelerate if they get into a much better game state later on.
Yeah, they don't get the full Grubs, but they at least get one to make sure that Weibo don't neutralize that pushing power that the 1-3-1 could offer on JD Gaming's side a little bit later on. So right now, JDG in a great spot, and we talked about the history of Weibo here in the regional finals. You look a little bit more recently. I mean, these two teams just played a couple of weeks ago, and it was JDG taking it rather convincingly in a 3-1 fashion. So there's different sides of the coin we have to consider here. And right now, JDG looked like the team that defeated Weibo just a few short weeks ago in the lower bracket of the playoffs.
All time, these two orgs are 9-9 in series. JDG are only eking out a small victory, 4-3 within 2025. So very close between these two. Obviously, that first best of 5 we got to see them goes all to 5. Very, very impressive. And now what we'll see is, because JDG don't have a majority of their grubs, it'll be on Weibo to find angles on side lanes with this Scion versus the Orianna, or maybe overload on the bottom side of the map with the Herald spawning in 4. Can we actually appropriately get Scout gold? Because if Orianna gets a lot of time in the side lane, which Scout has been known to do, whether or not he's on this champion or not, he is going to be super powerful. And we can see it even in his build. He is going for the Roa. He's going to be lacking a little bit of damage versus a champion like Scion.
Yeah, the scaling can continue to be there. Xiaohu under some fire. He's going to take a bit of time to scale up. His Scouts generated a really solid CS lead over his mid lane counterpart at this point. Obviously, the ganks from Shun having an impact there as well, as JDG will force Xiaohu back to base and get themselves the start of this Cloud Dragon. However, we'll see if Weibo want to contest this. It looks like they're going to retreat, making it a 2-0 lead in the Drake department.
See, Weibo used a numbers advantage to get them in position for the grubs. With Xiaohu no longer anywhere near that play, they're saying, okay, guys, let's just cut our losses. Let's go across the map. Sion's going to pick up the bottom lane wave. Let's move our bottom lane duo back into mid, trying to help push and mostly allow for Crisp to walk around and clear out vision. Scout, however, did lose his teleport in that trade, so while he forces Crisp's flash here, I think if Weibo want any chance of being able to be more relevant in this game, they do need to start attacking Scout.
And that is where JDG have found weaknesses at times this season with Scout, you know, whether he's able to generate an early lead or not, getting punished in the side lanes. And that has not happened so far, which is good, you know, good looking for JDG, but still a lot of opportunities for that to happen if you are Weibo looking for side lane opportunities. But at the moment, in JDG getting off to a good lead, we talk about how their composition will continue to scale. It is an Infernal Rift that will exist, meaning that just even more damage can be given to some of these hardline carries in Scout and Peyz as we get later on in this game.
They do not want this matchup. Like, Annie is consistently getting outranged. Also, there is almost a full level lead opening up here for Scout. He just showed topside, picks up one wave, immediately resets. He's going to do the same now. It is going to be Shun now trying to pressure onto this Annie in the bottom side of the map. Xiaohu has no vision, no coverage. If you look at the mini-map right now, all of Weibo's wards are on the top side of the map. They did spot out Braum in this instance, but now they're going to potentially, are they going to go for another swap? Because Breathe still has to catch this next wave. He's proxying between turrets. And I'm looking at objectives that are going to be spawning here, Grapes. 3 minutes before Dragon, already JDG have the first 2. We have Herald spawning in a minute and a half. And that becomes a little bit more interesting because JDG, they're going to be able to outrange their opponents. Weibo have done not very much with what is supposed to be a very proactive comp, at least ignoring even our top side.
Well, they're going to try to punish JDG right here. A ton of ultimates being thrown onto just the Braum, who's Unbreakable finds incredible value there. Zhuo not even going to be taken below 25% HP at the cost of 2 of those ultis, and that's going to be a big win here for JD.
We're a minute before the Herald. I'm actually looking at this from Weibo's side. Yeah, we may have traded our Tibbers ultimate, but that's going to be very low cooldown. Solar Flare, not going to be up in time, but probably is going to be delayed about 10 to 15 seconds after the objective spawns. Zhuo used Cleanse to get out of that, and there's no Shockwave here for Scout. So there's a window where I think Weibo can look to contest this objective on the top side and set themselves up looking pretty. Tian's clearing up into the top side right now. Should be looking to get a reset in soon. JDG, this has been such a great early game. We have seen glimpses of this so far in the postseason. Their playoffs run started off at least a little decent, very good games versus BLG, but weren't able to close out, and that has been the problem for JDG. It's about closing out an important series here in 2025.
Yeah, did not have a good time against anyone's legend in that lower semis, but it is easy to forget that they did take BLG, the eventual champions, to 5 games, something that only top esports also were able to do. So interesting things to note, that the peaks of this team certainly are there when you have Peyz and Shun and Scout playing at their A game. And some of the important auxiliary pieces as well have not fully gotten there all year, but no time like the present to reach those high highs. As JDG have opened up a 2,500 gold lead, are going to go reset, which does give Weibo an opportunity to position themselves around the Herald.
Brahm's going to use the Unsealed Spellbook Teleport. That is Smite from Tian. Should be up in about 10 seconds. As you can see, it is a rather fast cooldown. Must have had an extra charge. Sion's going to pack up this bottom wave.
Ooh,
Oh, wait a
whoa,
minute.
Glacial Fissure into the two-man Shockwave, and Tian's already down to half HP. Cataclysm comes out, and the Flag and Drag's going to knock up Light, but the Solar Flare will not find its mark, as Tian will be able to survive for now. Light flashes into the pit, and will be in some danger until he has his Valkyrie cooldown available. Doesn't have it yet, and the Rift Herald will be the one to take him down. It's 2-1 in favor of JD Gaming, and they're going to look for even more.
Peyz
Dashes forward and will pick himself up a triple kill. It's an absolute wipe for JD in the topside river. They get 4 with Xiaohu on the run.
Oh my god, and they're going to get this turret all for Peyz? No, they're going to reset, respect the tempo of their opponents, and you know what? It's not a JDG game if we're not giving gold to Scout here. Herald on top of that, huge win coming in for JDG. Off of what was supposed to be very short timers here, Weibo do not have enough damage to be able to play against their opponents, and it starts with Tian getting caught out. Great turnaround coming in from JD Gaming around the Herald. Zhuo tries to step up. He knows, hey, look, I can just land this. This is a two-man Shockwave, that's free. Tian gets locked up, and I think not only the jungle, but the AD carry here of Weibo losing sight of the terrain and what they're actually able to do in this game. Shun has no cooldowns. Why are we afraid of Jarvan in this instance? And maybe he doesn't have the Valkyrie. This is too thick of a wall for him to go over, so probably just signed his own death warrant and lost both of his summoner spells.
Look at that flash from Peyz, finding the perfect opportunity to go forward and barely able to survive. Now 3-0-1 on the Yunara, 2 completed items before Light has even finished his second or any completed boots onto the Corki. So big win here for JDG. They're going to try to break open this mid-tier 1 as well. Should be able to do so successfully. Let's see if they go for another charge.
They can. I mean, Dragon's still up. They might be a little bit afraid just because there is a Leona and quite telegraphed as to where you're able to get it. Not a second charge here, but it's not going to be on this wave. It's going to be on this next one that is coming up behind JDG that they're going to look to push. And it's up to them. There's really no reason to go up towards topside. It's a really far wave, at least considering where it is on the map. And JDG, they just get to retreat into bottom side. Are Weibo even going to contest? I mean, it's as good as it's going to get. Doesn't matter that your AD carry doesn't have flash, he has Valkyrie. But they have no mid-wave to even hit on the turret here. So there's a single ward that is stopping Weibo from, or stopping JDG from immediately getting spotted, but now there's a control.
And now Peyz gets to fire in on to breathe a little bit as well. The dissonance gonna slow down Crisp, and it's a 5,000 gold lead, remember, and that just means it'll be all too easy for JD Gaming. A 3-man Shockwave already has connected, and the Cataclysm will find 2 more. It is gonna be another wipe in the mid lane as JD Gaming get themselves an ace for 1 with the Dragon on the menu afterwards.
Wow, what is this JDG? This looks calm. This looks decisive. This looks like we are playing to the game strategy that was set up for them from draft. Take control of space and make it difficult for your opponents. I mean, Xiaoxu, hell, him by himself, he is walking forward into this team. Who is going to kill this Cassante at this time? Now JDG at 19 minutes are going to find themselves on Soul Point 11-2 versus Weibo. Look at this. Cassante is literally freely walking up against his opponents. Zhuo gets to do the same. There is no damage to be able to match here from Weibo. 3-man Shockwave from Scout. Tian's trying. I mean, cool. We killed the Annie that is, or we killed the Yunara that has no flash, no cleanse. But we traded all 5 of our team for it, and we lost a hell of a lot of on the map.
Shout out to Xiaoxu as well. I mean, you mentioned him at the top. He just solo killed Light in the backline during the midst of all the chaos. And man, Peyz, great performance here, but we got to give credit to Scout. My man decided to lock in going into this regional finals, at least at this point. 2-0-9, 100% kill participation, and finding crucial shockwaves left and right. And most importantly, deathless at this point. That's a pretty big win.
Yes, that's incredible. The only people to have died is Peyz and Zhuo. I mean, I expect it from Zhuo, but Peyz has been playing very, very aggressively tonight. And this is not a JDG that we have seen all of 2025. Even in the previous roster that we saw in Split 1 and Split 2, much more precise with how they want to take fights. Now, Otacon spawned up. JDG are going to try to spread Weibo thin. It's a little bit tough because there is a Sion that both has the Unstoppable Onslaught and this teleport. So mostly just going to be Xiaoxu just saying, hey, if you ever want to try to fight me, my all-out's going to make it incredibly difficult. Zhuo's looking if they can maybe get a little bit more push. Thought the Ghost was going to give him some more movement.
Just night and day from what we've seen from JD Gaming, especially recently. They can be at this level. Of course, that matchup against Invictus Gaming could get even more interesting, but still a lot more League of Legends to go. As the Otacon has been started up by JD Gaming, Xiaoxu is going to be forced out. As Weibo go for the collapse here. The Unstoppable Onslaught's going to connect, and that is a big shutdown given over to Light. However, it will come at the Otacon going down. With JDG now fighting a 5v4, but with a lot of crucial cooldowns already off the table for Weibo, they should be able to get out safely.
That's awesome. Look, we stole away a blue buff, but we got Otacon. That was a lot of experience going over. It is only 22 blood petals, so maybe half a level coming over. But I'm looking at these lanes right now, Grapes. It's a 3,000 gold lead between our two mid laners here. And Scout has been near flawless here in this game. There's only one Shockwave that he's missed all game long. Now he's going to be level 15. I don't imagine that he'll have time to get enough experience in time for this Dragon, but if they can stall it out, I see no reason as to why we would even doubt that JDG will be winning this game #1.
And when we, I don't know, like when we saw these two legendary mid laners face off in the playoffs, it was Scout who ended up winning the series, but we saw some good stuff from Xiaohu. A pure outclassing, at least at this point, and some serious questions I should say, are going to have to be answered on Weibo's side if this is how the mid lane matchup is going to continue to look. As I say, that Peyz is going to be forced to pop the cleanse as Xiaohu throws Tibbers on top of him in that bottom lane, but it's not going to come at the cost of all too much, and Peyz is going to be completely fine to keep himself up and standing here with the Dragon spawning in 2 minutes.
They're pushing on this bottom lane wave. They do need to get back into mid, so maybe escorting Jewel and Peyz. Jewel's going to use this time to exit into bottom side. Important for JDG to do that. As you can see right now, Scout is on the bottom side of the map. He wants to have a little bit more vision there as well, so making sure that they're playing to the side that their mid laner is on, and this control mage is just living the lap of luxury right now. 50 CS up on Xiaohu. 2 items completed. There's not like a random Seraphs now here. This is a Horizon focus, most recently buffed on this patch. Kind of a stat stick at this point. You got a lot of ability haste and a lot of raw AP coming in from this item. Plus a 10-stack Majai's book. Scout kind of wants to get this game over with very quickly, and there's a death timer here coming up in a minute. We've got the Infernal Soul on the cards for JD Gaming.
It's another player so marked with inconsistency this year. Big question marks entering this regional finals of what Scout would look like to try to get himself into Worlds, let alone qualifying for it, right? I mean, we saw the montage in the pre-show that Bloxer and K-Man broke down. It's a lot of mistakes that have not been showing, at least so far. If this is a Scout that is ready to go in the back half of the 2025 season, well, we are in for a whole lot of fun over these next couple of days. JD Gaming have the opportunity to claim this Infernal Soul with Baron up in just over a minute's time. And Weibo know they have to fight for this. I mean, the game's already in a very tough spot, but it would be even worse if the Soul goes over.
But this is what we were talking about from draft. How do Weibo ever walk into a blind, no vision having pit when there is a Braum, there is a Jarvan, and an Orianna? This is impossible for them to be able to break. So they need to find some kind of flank. They're trying to use this bottom lane wave so they can get wraparound and, I think more importantly, take control of the Tri-Brush. You see that Tian right now is trying to play in Fog of War. Xiaoxu's by himself focusing out Crisp.
Just a little bit of peppering of abilities being thrown out by both of these teams.
Just let Peyz solo this.
The inner angle in the pit. Peyz going to start up the Infernal Dragon. Seems like the rest of JDG should be able to box out Weibo for as long as they would like. But the go button has to be pressed at some point. When will Breathe pop the ulti? It is still Xiaoxu and Shun face tanking to their heart's content. The Dragon's at 5,000 HP. They got to get in there soon, or else the Soul will be delivered. All out in for Xiaoxu. In goes the Jarvan, but it will be Tian securing the Dragon and preventing that Soul from going over. But the fight is still going to come in with Shun landing that Cataclysm onto 2. But there's not a lot of follow-up just yet. Xiaoxu going to single out Light once more. And everybody on Weibo will drop like flies. Only Crisp remains. As Shun going to be the one to close the gap and feed a kill over to his AD carry. A double for the Unara. And JDG find themselves in the race.
Only a small error there from Xiaoxu. The all-out goes in as soon as Tian tries to use his Warrior Trickster, when he uses his W, it gives him a small iframe, essentially, and that's what stopped JDG from being able to secure this soul outright. They couldn't push Tian out of the pit. He gets in, steals it, but it is a Pyrrhic victory. You are now going to be down 10,000 gold at 26 minutes. It doesn't matter that you stole away the Dragon Soul. You're now going to have a Baron that you're going to have to deal with for the next 2 minutes. And there is no waves for you to be able to really play on. Your jungle camps are getting contested. Scout is so dangerous in this game. We look back at this replay. This was very slick from Tian. And this is basically the only way that they quote-unquote save the game here. Uses the W, the ultimate in the middle of the, like, he just not able to push him out. It doesn't even matter. Like, he almost wins this 1v1, by the way.
He gets it. No, he gets the kill here. Dodges away from a bunch of rockets. The Foss Bomb hits the bush instead of the Cassante.
Jungle diff.
That is an easy kill.
I mean, cool. It was kind of like a fight where Weibo not only needed to win the Dragon Smite fight, but they also needed to win the fight itself. And they didn't do, they only got one half of that equation. So we'll see what JDG can do. There's not great wave clear coming in from Weibo. They're going to play on 2 lanes, let Cassante sit in mid. I think Weibo very smartly know that these outer turrets don't really matter in the grand scheme of the game if they want to try to go late. Let's get an objective bounty for ourselves on the bottom side and get Xiaohu at least a little bit of gold. Maybe he finishes a second item.
But JDG beautifully playing around 2 lanes, having those waves crash at just the exact same time. The inhibitor towers in both mid and top lane under fire, sure to go down. And Weibo once again have to make a pretty tough decision as to where they want to try to have their last stand. The inhibitor tower already taken, the inhibitor in the mid also down. Cleanse onto Peyz, and he just eliminates Xiaohu at the blink of an eye. That is the mid laner for Weibo, already down. Crisp going in. It's already a 4v5 though, and that is not going to be a good sign for the team that's already down 12,000 gold. Tian dashes forward, won't be able to find a single kill with Xiaoxu still standing. Shun flagging Dragon forward, and another ace picked up. Where has this JDG team been all year long? It doesn't matter as they have finally arrived to the regional finals and put up a clinic over Weibo in game 1.
I mean, yeah, that was clean. The thing that I want to say for JDG and for JDG fans alike, job's not done. We got 2 more Nexus to blow up here tonight. JDG, they've shown us strong starts. This was exactly the same feeling and level of domination that we got to see from them at the very beginning of the playoffs. Their best of 5 versus BLG, where they got reversed swept. Those first 2 games, they looked great, but Scout did not look like this in that series. So how much more of this can we get? Can we have Scout 3 very solid games here tonight?
Mentioned it in your PowerPoint, right? And hey, that's 1 out of 3 so far, but it's a good point that you mentioned. The job is not done just yet, as JDG still have to close out the series against a Weibo team that always is going to be a resilient one, but they definitely got their face kicked in just a little bit there. A lot of questions still have to be answered, but at this point, we are very excited about what we just saw from that JD Gaming roster as they go up 1-0 in our best of 5 over Weibo. That's it for us here for our Game 1 coverage. Let's send it back over to Slayer and the analyst desk.
Thank you, kindly loyal casters. I hope you enjoyed what I would like to call your warm-up game of the series, because my lord, that game didn't last very long at all, guys. JDG showing just enough dominance here, Bloxer, to start, you know, letting some copium, some hopium, whatever your taste is, start escaping as leaking into the air vents of a lot of our viewers, huh?
Hey, all of a sudden, my prediction's feeling much better than I was feeling about it previously, right? Hey, Scout, welcome back, buddy. I'm glad to see you on the Rift again. That was really, really nice. I think it all started with a draft that I think everyone here was pretty happy with out of JDG, and then the execution is just there. They're playing early aggression, getting ganks off, which you need to do with the Jarvan. Your mid laner's playing up to what you want, and that means you've got all of that support in all of the places around to unlock Peyz, and bro was popping off.
Yeah, the damage. I mean, I just came at the damage on Peyz. I'm glad that he tops it off. You know, yeah.
I mean, look at the damage chart. This is indicative of where the game was at. And even really some of this, right, like Light's damage, partially fake in this game, as we'll say, a little bit accumulated on some tanks that he wasn't able to kill throughout this. But, you know, when you're looking at the draft and the way that this breaks down for JDG, it's so much easier for them to be able to execute on everything that ends up, you know, going through here because they have so many outs in the late game. You're relying on Wukong Annie from Weibo to actually set up a lot of the tempo in the early part of the game. And if they can't do that, which they couldn't, because let's give all the credit in the world to Scout. He was excellent in this game on the Orianna. He gets a gigantic lead, really controls the middle of the map, and from that point, Jarvan can do whatever he wants on the map, and Shun took full advantage of that.
Listen, I've already figured it out, Bloxer. I figured you out, okay?
Yeah.
Listen, first you make some Scout lowlights to run at the start of the show.
Yeah.
You trick us into thinking you're all Weibo. You predict JDG, claim something else happened, and then Scout pops off game one? What sort of dark magic's going on over there, Bloxer?
You got me. I'm baiting everybody in thinking that Scout's gonna be bad, and then he does stuff like this. Genuinely, if you were to just tune in, you've heard of the LPL, you've watched it in the past, and you haven't watched any of Split 3, you'd think we're trolling at the start of the show. You'd think
Yes.
Scout, he's great, he's awesome, and he has been, and in this game he was. It was genuinely a very rough split for him throughout the entirety of Split 3 in the group stage, and then in playoffs, he just wasn't able to pop off. In this game, it wasn't just the fact he was hitting the shockwaves, although that's really nice, right? That was one of the clips that we had at the top of show where he just whiffs a shockwave and it's pretty horrible, gets himself killed. It was the map rotation. He didn't get caught on a side lane. He was up by 20, 30 CS during the laning phase as well. This was a genuinely stellar performance from him top to bottom in a way that he just hasn't been able to put together throughout this entirety of Split 3.
I think the most impressive thing to me is that you're absolutely right. You pointed it out, Block. So the traditional somewhere between 10 and 14 minute Scout walks into a brush and dies that has just been so consistent. Like these weird map rotations where he's just not connected with the rest of his team. It wasn't there in this game. He felt locked in. He felt solid and stable. And I think they put a lot of trust in him with this draft. You know, Orianna is a strong pick, but you do need to establish that pressure early because Annie can be a problem for, you know, something like Yunara in the late game, especially if Cleanse is down. And so you have to make sure that you can play around that champion in a strong way. And Scout absolutely lived up to the billing here today. This is his best game in months. And you were right. Like, you know, if you turned off everything, if you're tuning into the LPL for the first time all year long, this is the Scout you thought you were going to see. And so we're just excited to see that, I think.
All right, guys. So with all this Scout love flowing freely, I want to get quick answers here because I think they're going to throw it up first. K-Man, you first. Who's your player of the game, man?
This is kind of tough, but I kind of have to give it to Peyz. I thought he was excellent on the Yunara, really ripped through the front line. Got to give the ADC some credit there, even if Scout was really good.
Bloxer?
I also just want to give it to Peyz. I think he was so nice, but I'd also throw in Jun as just like, that was a really solid, really nice look on the Jarvan. But
Oh, Bloxer!
yes!
Backdoors it. Perfect.
He was good with it. He was nice.
Listen, it's a very simple role to play in a comp like this Jarvan. Doesn't mean you should dock it for the execution, right? Because that's what matters most. So you go Deathless on a Jarvan game where your ult is literally created to try and throw you in the middle of dangerous people, and you don't die.
Yeah.
You know, a simple bar to clear. Bar has been cleared. So JDG now sit up 1-0 right now in this series. But as we do here on the analyst desk, we're going to break down a bit more about this game. When I know it was pretty lopsided, but there were some very fun intricacies that came across in this game, especially, and it did kind of start from draft, and I don't know if we have... Okay, so let's take a look at this Game 1 draft, because, K-Man, I heard you specifically as we came out of this draft going into Game 1 feel like JDG had the more favored draft, in your opinion. Why did you feel that way?
For me, I think you're really just looking at both individual matchups and just the threat of scaling here. You're getting an absolutely gigantic power pick with the Yunara on B1. This is a champion that's not often left up. I mean, it is here in the LPL, at least more frequently than some other regions, but Yunara is an incredibly strong champion and gives you a free out to pair alongside something like Orianna Jarvan that just has such consistent setup. It's really easy for JDG to play this out, even if they're playing it from neutral, because their combo is always going to be effective. They can always get themselves in in a position to team fight. Whereas Weibo really does need to set that tempo early, and it kind of has to come through the Wukong Annie. And that becomes more difficult when you're Annie getting pushed in under tower by Orianna, and specifically when your bot lane is also not generating that big of a CS lead, when Corki is staying neutral against Yunara, which is never going to be ideal. I think this game was always just going to be, at the very least, a little bit easier for JDG.
Bloxer, similar sentiment. I also felt that way, but for me, it's personally, I am a bit anti-Corki bias in a lot of these compositions. I think Corki's very hard to play out from here, and I also do just think you get away with a lot of counters. Like, you heard K-Man talk about the Orianna into Annie, but I just think if you need to get more out of this bottom lane, having to play Leona into Braum to try and get an early lead, it's pretty suffocating.
It completely shuts down what you're trying to do between a Corki Leona, but you want to go in. You want to use the fact you've got a ton of early damage in that lane to punish your opponents, but the second you jump in, you just take an auto attack from the Braum, you're done. You take a Winter's Bite, absolutely, there's no way back out again. That's why the Leona's really fun into other full engage support matchups, because you can hold off, allow them to come into you, stun them up, and you win the war of attrition. You're a little bit tankier as well with the W. Into the Braum, you have to be the aggressor, you have to be the initiator, you get way too far forwards, get stunned up, can't leave, so it just shuts down any of that aggression bot lane, and then also, not only is your Leona way more useless than otherwise, Corki trying to deal damage through that Braum E as well, there's nothing that you can do. I think the Braum was sort of the linchpin that held together this composition and just stopped so much of what Weibo wanted to try get going.
It's big because we talked all day long so far about how support might be the role in this matchup that has a lot up in the air between Xiaohu and Chris so far in this split. So good to see that ease of execution came over to Xiaohu. Let's talk more about what happened in the game, though, because we talk about it, who has the draft gap, but it always comes down to execution. And K-Man, in this game, it really was the fights that, started out kind of wacky, we'll say, at least with this first one.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about, the layering of abilities coming in here, but for the most part, this is perfect from JDG, and this is something we have not seen from this team, which is clean execution in these front-to-backs around early objectives. We've seen them at times be able to play 25, 30-minute team fights, around Baron and around, Fourth Dragon, things like that they're a lot more comfortable playing. It's these early grubs and Rift Herald fights that have often been kind of a problem for them, but here, the setup is great, the shockwave was excellent, Peyz is able to capitalize, and you're just able to kind of snowball that forward. I think even before this, we saw Scout and Shun link up for that first blood in the mid lane as well. It's just that proactivity that I've really liked.
And there's the Bloxer agenda right there. 3-man shockwave from Scout Bloxer. This is really where we were calling GG off this mid lane fight.
Yeah, we were wondering if they were going to be able to fully push this one through and end it, but this is Scout setting his team up for success, and this is what Peyz needed. Obviously, in this team fight, he just gets everything dumped on his head and ends up going down, but he was flashless, he didn't have that cleanse either at that point, so it was really, really tricky to play this one out, but he was constantly able to just hold the transcend oneself long enough into team fights that at the point at which he pops it, everything's going well. This team fight, though, is not about JDG.
Don't watch Light.
Xiaoxu.
Watch Light. Look at Light. This is Cassante Gaming, baby. But also, it's not Cassante's fault in this situation. Light misses a lot of stuff. He's also fighting at that point, like, fully in his own minion wave. So he's not even getting blocked on any of these rockets by there being, a minion in front of him. This is the best situation you could possibly ask for. All he has to do is hit one more rocket, and he just fails to do that, and good night. Good night to Weibo.
Yeah. Good night indeed. Yeah. You listen, as the AD carry player on the desk, I'm always here for an AD carry is weak shout going on in chat. I'm watching you guys, chatters, you loyal chatters. We can't call it there, guys. Listen, if we always cry wolf, the AD carry is weak, no one's going to believe us. So when our Corki misses Phosphorus Bomb, double rocket, we can't call it weak, okay? That is just a skill gap, unfortunately, for Light here. So I'm glad that we got that last clip in because it kind of did show what we could see later in this series that despite how ahead JDG were looking, despite how clean some of these executions looked, I heard you while the fight was going on. There was some classic JDG worry about the setup around that fight and how it could have really just flipped the game.
Yeah, I was real concerned with the way that started off, where Cassante dives into 4, just kind of hoping to pull people off of the dragon. Dragon gets stolen anyways. We just get Tian walking up on Wukong and smiting it. I don't even think he pressed W. I actually think he just walked up and smited it, which is worse. But you have all of this surrounding situation, and then you have Scout Shockwave hitting no one. And I'm like, oh no, this is going bad really fast. Like, this is becoming a problem. Luckily, at this point, you have what must have been a 4 or a 5 kill Yunara, able to clean up the fight. This is where I personally will just say, anyone saying buff ADC or ADC weak, yeah, the Corki couldn't kill the Cassante, and the Yunara ripped through the entire front line of Weibo Gaming in that fight. So, you know, I think there's some push and pull. But, you know, sloppy execution doesn't matter when you're able to get these big leads, and that's been the problem for JDG, is they've given themselves no buffer throughout this year. They had a lot of buffer in this game, and they used it well.
Exactly. With the setup point, the crime is forgiven by your opponents playing badly and you being ahead in gold, but around that last dragon specifically, there was no setup. They didn't get themselves any deep warding, they didn't get themselves any kind of flank off of the Cassante, as you said, Slay. He kind of just walks at his opponents, and it's all 5 members just stood in the pit, allowing all 5 members of Weibo to just get position around the bottom side of the map. The only